Ever since the first chapter of Deltarune came out, there were tons of analyses and theories about it, and they only multiplied with chapter 2. Some of these 3-year-old videos hold up pretty well to this day, but there are also some that aged like milk. The people who made this one in particular have been strangely silent about the game recently, probably because Toby reminded them that they haven't paid attention to the king's speech during his boss fight. So let's quickly go through what we know so far. The darkners that are associated with physical objects in the light world came from somewhere, which we will call the dark for now. And every time these two worlds are fused by someone's determination, a dark world is created. If the darkners from one go to another, they might turn into stone after a while, some sooner some later. The Grand Fountain in Castletown is special however, because it creates a habitable environment for all of them, and this also makes Ralsei special since he was born from it. Today however, I wish to look at this story from a different perspective. Even though the Dark World is just a board game, theory has pretty much been debunked. Our main characters still fit the Dungeons and Dragons system in terms of classes, subclasses, and archetypes. Keep in mind that by main characters I only mean our 4 current party members, not including others such as Lancer or Birdlee. Chris is a fighter, a battlemaster to be more precise, and can best be described as an agent of chaos. Susie is a berserker from the barbarian class. She starts as a ruler, charging straight into battle and relying only on brute force, but later she becomes a headhunter, using her strength, smarts and presence to gain victory. Ralsei is a wizard from the School of Enchanting, and his archetype is the sage. Last but not least, Noelle is a sorcerer, a divine soul nonetheless. She starts as a caregiver, and by the end of chapter 2, she either remains one, or becomes a creator. In this video, I wish to shed light on how these two paths came to be, how they affected Noelle and what they could hold for the future.
Analog is sold 5 terabytes ago. Come inside this digital domain. We can all be heroes in a world of ones and zeros. We'll leave behind the boring and mundane. Don't be the bug in my system, or else we're gonna crash and fall. Yeah, let's go digital. Yeah, let's go digital. Yeah, let's go digital. Yeah, let's go digital. Virtual is so the only way to go. Cyberspace is really quite a trip. When you switch your mode to raw binary code, we'll run amok inside a microchip. Don't be the bug in my system, or else we're gonna crash and fall. Yeah, let's go digital. 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 Yeah, let's go digital.
In order to understand Noelle and what fear means in her eyes, we must first take a closer look at her relationships, starting with her family. When she was younger, she and her sister Des used to stay up late at night watching horror movies. The two girls were also close friends with Chris and Azriel. They did a lot of exploration together, in wild new territories where she didn't mind being afraid, mostly because of her sister. It's this world of thrill, adventure, and friends who were always there for her that was taken away when Des disappeared. After that, her mother became overly protective and strict, making Noelle into this obedient, good girl, who can't even speak for herself, and Rudy, despite being a nice and chill dad, couldn't fill the gap in his daughter's heart. He describes her as defenseless and afraid of everything, and since he has recently been hospitalized, he cannot protect her now. At the end of chapter 1, Chris made a promise to do it instead, which based on the information I gathered so far, is canon. Despite being estranged, Chris never really strayed far from Noelle, and the two kids have a special bond between them, which will be important later. I'll go more into detail about this relationship in my next video, but for now I just want to point out one thing. If you say, "We're friends," to this guy, Noelle mentions how surprisingly nice it was to hear. But a dishonest answer wouldn't have been so nice, would it? Shortly after Dessa's disappearance, Noelle and Birdly participated in a spelling bee, and when the word December came up at the end, she couldn't say it, causing our little bluebird to win the contest. He is quite a narcissist due to the lack of recognition and self-esteem, so after this first taste of victory he wanted to become the #1 student in class, a goal Noelle helped him achieve, simply out of kindness. When he said towards the end of the chapter that he thinks she has a crush on him, but he really values her as a friend, I honestly thought he was just making that up. After seeing his other side though, I quickly changed my mind. While Noelle is kind and sweet to all of her classmates, the school bully is rather special in her eyes. It is Susie's presence and attitude what drives most of the other kids away, but also what she finds so appealing. Her affection certainly has a little wishing to be stepped on, but what she wants most is to know more about this cool and rebellious girl she admires. After all, being drawn to scary things is directly connected to her desire to be free and return to the world of the unknown, a place she once belonged to. However, after Catty mentioned that Chris has to keep her in the light and away from Susie's darkness, I began to wonder if our favorite purple girl really is a good idol. During the second chapter she constantly acts like she's always right and doesn't have to listen to anyone. When Noelle makes the suggestion to create more dark fountains, she encourages everyone to do it, despite the fact that the roaring didn't just come out of nowhere, it was already set up back in chapter 1. When the balance between light and dark shatters, it brings on the apocalypse. Susie either missed the point of the prophecy, or just forgot about it because she didn't care. Either way, that's multiple levels of irresponsible. Although she does act more maturely in the evil route, but we'll talk more about that later. Rudy mentioned that Noelle freezes like a deer in headlights whenever she's scared, but that doesn't mean she isn't capable in her own right. When she gets captured by Queen in the cyber world, she plays along for a while, but then slips away at the first opportunity. After Birdly's coaster explodes, like pretty much everything Queen touches, she meets up with Chris in the city and joins the party.
I am yours now. Your wish is my command.
The paths you can take at this point are determined by the 3 C's of Deltarune: care, carnage and cruelty. Let's start with care, aka the pacifist route. As the greenhorn of the team, Noelle needs to learn a lot. She is also afraid of mice at first, although she is not alone with that. On the other hand, she is a quick thinker when solving puzzles, she has some really good act options, and her magic arsenal is also quite impressive. Heal Prayer isn't that special, but Sleep Mist is one to watch out for. It is essentially an ice-cold knockout gas that can target multiple enemies at once, unlike Ralsei's Pacify spell which targets the mind directly. The Carnage route isn't that much different, it's using attacking instead of acting. Just keep in mind that Noelle doesn't have a melee weapon, so all she can do is a weak slap. Also look at her face, she is clearly not happy about it. Use Ice Shock instead. In this route you're pretty much stuck with the base level version, but it barely costs any TP and still does good damage. During that time, there are multiple encounters with Queen, and her plans and motivations slowly start to unfold. Who she needs for success isn't a weak peon who can never say no, but a person of strong will. Noelle would certainly fit the bill, since she is still managing, despite everything that happened to her family. An important thing I want to point out is the boldness meter, that goes up regardless of the path you choose. You could say that it's just her getting more confident, overcoming her fear of mice, standing up to Queen etc. But there is a more disturbing implication. Once you meet Susie and Ralsei again, if you choose to be a jerk and betray Noelle, she says that she needs protection, but she also doesn't want to get in the way. Also when Queen activates her giant robot, she says you need to get out of here, instead of we, as if she doesn't even care about herself anymore. As I said before, Noelle is a caregiver by default, whose only objective is helping her teammates, even at the expense of tanking the bullets for them. It seems whenever she is part of a team, she stops thinking for herself, which makes her attraction to the dark world all the more dangerous. Even though Susie more or less convinced her that it was a dream, which Chris probably found a good idea, it's only a matter of time before Noelle discovers the truth. I admit that wanting to heal her dad does give her an extra motivation, but even if we put that aside, it doesn't change the point. She wants to be a Delta warrior, because of the thrill, the adventure, and the friends she can give her all four. And this attitude is kind of an issue, if one of these friends happens to be a relentless killer. The evil, or Snowgrave, route starts with Chris and Noelle backtracking to the trash area and starting to kill every single enemy with her Ice Shock spell. If you check Spamton's shop at the end of the road, she mentions how creepy but also kind of nostalgic the place feels. Judging by her little smile, it must have brought up a memory she remembers fondly. As her coldness starts to grow stronger, cars disappear from the road, new enemies start patrolling. At this point, if you say, "We're something else" to this guy, he tries to sell you a freeze ring, which is a significant upgrade on the snow ring you currently have. It's too expensive, but after a bit of pressuring, Noelle takes it by force. After that moment, her fighting animations change, becoming more battle-ready and mystical, and the enemies start running away from her. In the meantime, she starts having blackouts, trying to cover her sense of guilt, and brushing of sudden murderous intentions like it's nothing. This is supposed to be the exciting journey she was craving for, but the cruelty and lack of compassion makes her concerned, to say the least. She still tries to convince herself that getting stronger is worth it, that her childhood friend only wants the best for her. The truth is, Chris would rather die than let Noelle's trust and loyalty be abused like that. After freezing the remaining enemies in the city, you can buy the thorn ring from Spamton. If you abort the run at this point, and show it later to Susie, she says that it looks like a torture device, and she is right. It constantly hurts its wearer, converting pain into strength. This allows you to overcome the ice shock's limitations, transforming it into the much more powerful Snowgrave spell. Just like creators in D&D can utilize their spells to their full extent. If you can imagine it, it can be done. Once you push Noelle over the limit, she unleashes the Snowgrave on Birdlee, crossing the point of no return. She escapes through the underground sewer system and Chris follows her to the castle. Once you arrive there, not only has Lancer become a statue in your pocket already, but Rule's card is fully petrified as well. It is important to note here that if you take the normal path, Lancer turns into stone shortly after arriving in the mansion, but Rules holds out to the very end. This means that Chris climbing through the sewers alone took longer than the rest of the normal route after the Birdlee fight, and what happened during that time unfolds before your very eyes. Imagine Noelle crawling back to Queen, pleading for help, so she of all people has to comfort her and put her to sleep. At this point she already realized that Chris wasn't the one controlling her. Something is seriously wrong with her friend and she has to dig to the bottom of it. Susie is the only one she can trust now, even though she ultimately failed to convince her that it was all just a dream. In some way, everyone has failed to protect her. That of course doesn't mean she would be weak. In fact, she is a tough nut to crack. The only times during the chapter she does break, is when her friends are in danger, like Queen threatening them directly in the normal route, until she hardens a bit and decides to stand up for them, or in the evil route being reluctant to fight Birdlee, begging you not to hurt him. No matter which path you chose, one thing is certain. Noelle will return to the dark world, and she will be willing to endure any pain or torment for her friends. Both her and Susie have a lot to learn before they could become full-fledged heroes, but I'll get back to that in my next video where we'll be discussing Chris's actions, and a plan that may flip the whole story on its head.